Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about, from a big picture, the Euro USD position that I took last week. Now, I made a couple videos of this trade while I was in it, but now I have officially closed out of this position. I ended up taking a nice profit there on Friday before the weekend. It is Saturday at the time of making this video, and I'm planning on kind of just going through the full trade breakdown and the reasoning behind why I actually took this trade, how I took it, how I played out the trade from a big overall standpoint, so that maybe we can look for more setups like these in the future. This was in the end of it being a 3R trade. Now what that means is 3R means that it is 3 times whatever I risked. So for example, let's say that you chose to risk 50 pips on a trade, right? That means that you risked 50 pips. That's the worst that could happen if your trade hit stop loss and then ended up taking a profit there of plus 150. So for every 1 pip that I risked, I made 3 pips. Or another way of putting it could be, let's say I risked $50, right? And I made a total of $150, right? That's for example, and you can do that on any way, but I always use this R kind of concept so that it is a little bit, easier to understand. So if you took a trade that was, a $500 risk and ended up taking $1,500 of profit, that would be still a 3R, right? So it's more of a proportion-based concept. So that is the ending result, but let's talk about how we got there and maybe how we could look to repeat some of the stuff that I ended up taking or how I ended up taking this trade. So really, the big picture thing is that we're on the daily chart right now. And a lot of times when I take my trades, I start on the daily chart. Now, granted, I am a swing trader. So what that means is I am not day trading. I'm not taking like 4 or 5 trades a day. I'm usually taking 1 trade a day, or maybe 2 trades a day, or maybe even 0 trades a day, depending on what the market is doing. But what I am mostly looking for is momentum in a market, and I'm trying to capture a piece of that momentum. I'm not gonna play it perfectly. I am not your local neighborhood guru or anything like that. I'm just a normal dude. I have figured out a strategy that works for me, which is mostly riding momentum and just sticking with the trend. And it seems to really play out nicely when the market is trending very strongly like this. So let's actually take a look at some concepts here. And from a big picture standpoint, let's do some technical analysis. So here on the daily chart, what we had been noticing, and you can validate this by going through all my old videos and my Sunday specials, but I've been talking about every Sunday during the start of the week, I basically talk about setups or ideas that I am looking at. Well, the last couple Sunday specials, I've been talking about this level of resistance on Euro USD and how I was favoring the buy side if it showed signs of wanting to do so. And if it decided to go bearish, I'd be less interested, but maybe there was some setups to talk about. What I mean by that is this market was in a range-bound market. We're not driving up or driving down, and we don't have strong momentum either ways. So during this time, I really didn't take too many trades. I took a few consolidation-based trades, range-bound trades, but for the most part, for my main sort of strategy where I'm looking for the trend-following continuation sort of stuff, I was really interested in the break if we could get it above this 1.2 level. And if you remember, in the last few Sunday specials, I basically said, if price breaks through this, I'm going to look for buys. But we hadn't done it all this time. So I waited on this trade for a very long time. That's waiting since July. If you think about that, it's kind of crazy. Ever since July, I've been spotting a bullish continuation once we entered into this consolidation. I was thinking it even could happen back here, right? So clearly I'm not some sort of masterful predictor all the time. I thought we could break through here and start to see, the trade continue and just kind of rocket higher with everything going on in 2020. However, that's not what happened, but I was still patient with the trade, and fortunately, it worked out all right, because eventually we broke out last week really and just saw bullish continuation all week. Now I'm going to talk about how I actually got into the setup. So let me pull this up over here for you guys. This is the trade that I shared with members inside of the A1 trading community. There's a link down below in the description if you have any interest in joining us. I share my trades. We also have a chat room and educational material and live webinars, all sorts of stuff here you can see on the side. So I ended up taking a position here, and I'm going to show you guys. We're actually going to set it up. So I made my first video about that here. You can go back and watch it if you want on the channel. It looks like this. It's top Euro USD forex setup. Check out this buy zone for 2021. And all I was talking about is how I think euro dollar is bullish for the rest of 2021. And I ended up taking a buy position on this pullback here. So you can actually see this is on the, I believe this is the 1 hour chart. So let's bring it down to the 1 hour chart and see if we can find exactly where this was. So yeah, there it is. So what we can see is now we're much more granular here. Now we've actually looked for a position here, and I'm going to try and actually plug this in so we can see it. So I'm going to go to where I actually sent out the buy position, which is 1.1936. I just copied that, and let's see if we can get this right. So this is where, wow, I was very close with that. So I entered right here. And let's actually also plug in the stop loss as well here. And notice there's no take profit. I'm gonna talk about that in just a moment, but here's the thing. So we go to the stop level here, right? So tick level, no, we want the price, right? Plug that in there, and there we go. So with this position, you can see this is where I ended up getting long on the trade. So I took the buy position here. After doing that analysis on the daily, I liked the fact that on the daily, we were in fact breaking that big fat gray zone there, which was our resistance at 1.2 roughly, right? You can see, well, 1.2 is actually a little bit higher, so we're a little off on that zone. But you know, for the most part, we saw price start to break above that key level of resistance. And I saw this pullback intraday and I said, okay, you know what? I'm interested in taking a buy position. I didn't take a huge position. It's not like I put my life savings on the line or anything like that. But I did take a position and I ended up putting my stop underneath structure here. So now that we're on a little bit more of a granular level here, this zone was kind of my line in the sand. I really didn't want to see price pull back much further than this because, again, those are some strong red candles. So if it continues, I just wanted to hop out of that trade, right? Because, you know, it could continue lower. It depends. If this zone did not break thoroughly enough, then this thing could very much go back into consolidation like we saw on that daily chart. So that's not what ended up happening. What actually ended up happening is price came down to my level. I ended up buying here at previous resistance, looking for the continuation rather quickly, or I would stop out. Risked a small amount, and then from there, price started to shoot up. And from here, this is where things got interesting because I made a comment in one of my videos here, basically, okay, well, we've got the trade going in my favor, and immediately I got questions from people and comments on the video saying, you know, Nick, are you taking your profit now? Is it time to take profit? Is it time to take profit? And I want to say this. So for me, one of the biggest things about my trading that I think is not necessarily unique in terms of everybody, but definitely not everybody is doing this. I am not a big believer, believe it or not, in trying to predict the market's every move. In fact, I think there's a lot of noise short term. I think that the markets are, you know, they move all over the place due to greed and fear and price action. Although it is a good indicator, it is not going to, in my opinion, be some sort of magical tool to always tell you when to buy, always tell you when to sell. It's gonna have, you know, imperfections just like everything else in trading. So for me, I don't like to predict as much as I like to just react. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I don't have a take profit on this trade. What I said is basically, I have a bullish thesis, both from a fundamental standpoint and from a technical standpoint here. And I think the trend is set to continue throughout the rest of 2020. So the fundamentals here, I also mentioned, I forgot to say this earlier, but basically I had a bearish bias in the US dollar the last month or two really, based on the money being printed by the Fed and a push towards more risky or risk-on investments. Things like stocks are pushing higher, and you know, the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, the pound, things that are more risk-on type investments. I encourage you to do a Google search if you're not sure what that means, risk-on. But basically things that are more risky and investors push money towards. So that was part of my fundamental bias as well. So that combined with the technical setup that I liked here ended up getting me long in the position. Price starts to run, and this is where the real challenge comes in. Because to me, entries, don't get me wrong, they are important. But exits, in my opinion, are more important than entries. Because how many times, and I'm guilty of this, so I'm not calling anybody out on purpose, how many times have you taken a position like this, called a really great bottom or called a great pullback zone or a great breakout just to take profit very quickly, to watch it run away with way more profit left on the table? This is a very frustrating thing to me because I could just avoid that by trying to trail stops and trying to put a bigger target. Although there's a pro and con to everything, of course, in trading. And the con is sometimes when you trail stops, you ended up taking a lot less profit, right? For example, I actually ended up trailing this trade to profitability right around this previous top. So I'll break that down a little bit. So as price started to push up in my favor, as we hit about 1R, remember my R statement earlier in the trade, or earlier in the video, I talked about the fact that this is 1 times my initial risk. I moved my stop to break even here. It very well could have come back down, tagged me out, and then continued. And that would have been frustrating too. So I'm not saying that this is the perfect way to trade or everybody should trade with a trailing stop. It's my personal approach to trend trading. It's not necessarily the best. It's not necessarily the only way. It's just how I like to do it. So as price starts to run in my favor, I just like to trail in that stop and not try and predict when the trend is going to end until I actually start to see weakness, which is how I ended up closing the position for a 3R profit on Friday. So let me actually see if I can do this. I'm going to show you guys something. So I'm going to take this distance. I'm just going to use a line as a gauge here. So I ended up taking 1, put another here, 2, and 3. So I ended up getting out of the trade right around here. Okay, and I didn't do it here. I actually closed out the position here. So this is where the trade closed. The tool here is a little bit confusing, but price continued. I trailed up my stop and then price stopped me out. And you may ask, well, why did it get stopped out here? Why didn't you take profit here? Well, if I knew that price was going to turn around up there, that would have been, a great time to do it, but I didn't know that. I'm not some sort of magician. I don't have a crystal ball. And again, let me give you guys a short, brief piece of advice. If you're this far in the video, then awesome. You've made it to the part where I talk some real stuff that, not everybody on the surface level wants to hear. Here's the thing. If you see people on the internet who tell you like, oh, you should have done this, and they have these, like, you see them in comment sections a lot. I get them in my comment section, people that, they're like it's like the backseat driver or the armchair quarterback if you're in the US. It's the people who kind of like use hindsight and just, they criticize or judge, right? You're going to get those sort of comments. You're going to see that stuff as a trader, especially watching content on YouTube. You're going to see people with conflicting ideas telling you you should do this or you should do that. Let me tell you right now, you're going to save yourself a lot of time, energy, and probably money just by ignoring a bunch of other people's thoughts and criticisms and focus on what works for you. This strategy that I'm talking about is something that I am very comfortable with, and I don't care who or what says something against me. I will continue to trade my own plan because I've spent so much time in the studio, if you will. I'm not a rapper, but you get what I mean. Tons of time working on these strategies, coming up with stuff to build consistency in my own trading. I'm not going to let other people's comments change my mind, if you will. So with that said, I ended up taking profit right here because we broke underneath this level. So basically I trailed my stop up to this point here underneath structure, right around here. So at this point in time, I said, okay, you know what? I'm either going to hold this trade over the weekend, or if it sells off, I'm going to close profits underneath this level. And that is exactly what ended up happening. Closed out the profit for a 3R gain. Okay. Could this continue next week? It very well could. There actually might even be a setup looking for the break above this previous level as well. We could even repeat some of the concepts that we did this week. So I'm not saying that euro dollar is done going higher, but by my rules, we've seen some rejection, we've seen some turnaround potential, and that is a good point for me to close out this trade for a great profit there. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Of course, not all of my trades are this great, and I don't want to come across like that. I'm not some sort of, I say it all the time, not a guru. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just a normal dude trying to catch trends, trying to catch moves, and I've been doing this for a while, put a lot of time, energy, and effort into my strategies. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, please give it a like, especially if you made it to the end. Do me a favor, help me as a YouTuber, smash that like button, support the content. It really does mean a lot. And subscribe for more trading content if you are not already subscribed. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and happy trading.